Happy Christmas, everybody. It's Captain Jamie Lofthouse here, and I hope everything has gone well. This is the December Captain's Log. At this time of year, it's a great opportunity to catch up with friends, family, and just chill out and enjoy some time away from work or any stresses, really. It's an opportunity to reflect on the year that's gone by. And I'm a very big believer in reflecting. Please forgive the background noise. I'm not in the studio. And when I think about reflection, I try to go back as far as I can. Now, a little bit about me, because I've faced a lot of challenges in my life. I've faced difficulties and disability, but I've always been determined to succeed. I was born in 1979 to two loving parents. Everything seemed fine until around about the age of 2, when there was some mobilization issues with me and a tendency to fall over my left foot, which led to issues and ultimately a diagnosis of mild cerebral palsy, which affected my left side of my body. Still does. Many, many years of physiotherapy, surgeries, and I was able to pretty much mobilize like everybody else, although I experienced more pain, tiredness, and if you do a little bit of research on mild cerebral palsy, you'll understand it better. Thankfully, unlike those who have more severe forms of cerebral palsy, it didn't impact my intellectual capability. And that was a blessing. It really, really remains a blessing. Now, anybody would think, oh my goodness, that's enough. That's enough for anyone to deal with. And I agree. Had a very difficult, terrible childhood experience, which I won't go into because it's very traumatic, which led to, me as a young person in my early teens to be subsequently diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and mood issues, which were much later diagnosed as bipolar. So when you look at all of that, you think, my goodness, that's a hell of a lot of stuff to work with. But I'm a very determined person and I look for positive opportunities wherever I can. Of course, I have days where, I'm not so positive, just like everybody else. But I always knew what my skills were, and I thought, okay, I'm going to put them to work. I really am going to put them to work. I found lots of ways to adapt around the issues I had, physical and psychological. The best thing for me was actually having those diagnoses and being treated appropriately by very, very skilled psychiatric services. One of my consultants was a professor, and luckily I don't tend to get side effects from medications and things. So we found the balance between being able to manage something without causing functional loss. One of the first areas of my career was in healthcare. I was determined to give back to the healthcare system that had helped me so dramatically over my life. And over a decade, I've supported elderly, younger people, and palliative care, which is a very specialized thing. And you have to have a certain nature and you have to be able to cope and be able to work in a very tight team. And that was a very humbling experience. But during all of that time, I also found a love of creativity. I was able to go onto radio stations, do a bit of broadcasting and things like that, and writing as well. Writing. I used to really love writing bits here and there, little creative stories and so on and so forth. And I thought, well, actually, I can turn this into a job. And I have, and I did. Yes, of course, I face barriers. Everybody does. But if you approach a barrier with the attitude of, oh, well, I'm not going to get past that, I might as well back off, then you are undermining your own strengths, your own abilities. And you then fall into seeing your disabilities and issues as things you can never get over, things that will ruin your life forever. And it really doesn't have to be like that. It really doesn't have to be like that. Thankfully, now as technology has evolved and as beautiful as it is, you can use adaption software. There's so many opportunities to make everything accessible in the way that you need to, in a totally customizable way. There are people that are heavily disabled but still able to drive cars through clever adaptations of them. And I think the change in, moving from a sick state to a well state can be challenging psychologically. But I know of so many people, including myself, who've managed to overcome that. And there are times where, psychologically, for no reason at all, things deteriorate, or perhaps due to circumstances, they deteriorate. But if you always have a recovery mindset and you know how to use the tools, the specialists, how to access them, recovery is a very achievable goal for most people in psychological terms. And physical terms, there are a lot more options than there used to be. And I understand the NHS is in a very significant crisis at the moment, and not everybody has the benefit of private care. And I get that. And sometimes things have to be delayed because of it. But your goal should remain in mind. But when you set a goal and you say to yourself, I don't know, I'm going to travel to Australia. Don't particularly like flights, but I'm going to travel to Australia, which, believe me, is a very, very long flight. Then you've got to put the things that lead to the success of that goal. How are you going to manage? Will you need some medical intervention to help you sleep, or, sleep through some of the flight? Whatever it happens to be, you then set the steps that let you get to that goal. And it's much the same principle for anything else. If you've not been able to access the workplace due to challenges and difficulties, it's important to know that for most people, it is possible, and it's absolutely something you should aim for. In the UK and the EU, we have legal requirements in employment law for employers to make reasonable adaptations. And reasonable adaptations can and do work. Thankfully, I've not needed much in the way of reasonable adaptations, but where I've needed them, I found employers to be extremely accommodating because they know that I am passionate about the job, that I have good capabilities and reliability. And building yourself up takes time, but it's something that you should do. The sixth state, it's a psychological concept based around strengths approaches in mental well-being. It's simply where you get stuck and you think, because I have X, Y, and Z, I can't do A, B, C. Well, that's not always the case. I believe everybody can overcome that with help and support, of course, and you should. If you're brilliant, or just, starting out in creative writing, if you can tell a story, tell the story. If you have to do that by way of just saying your story, using your voice, brilliant, do it. Podcasts are a massive thing, and they're easy to do. You don't need to have hundreds of dollars, hundreds of pounds, hundreds of euros worth of technology. Can be done in some instances just on your mobile phone. And your mobile phone likely has a large number of accessibility features. So knowing how you cope, the best periods of the day for you to work is an important factor, because then you can look for work that can accommodate those hours. And if you're the sort of person that can be very disciplined and be your own boss, then do it. Become a sole trader, create a business, give it a try. You see, in the United States, entrepreneurship is absolutely the main encouragement. And if it doesn't work the first time round, or you end up in a situation of bankruptcy in the United States, they don't see that as a negative thing. They see that as an opportunity for learning and getting back on the bike. In the UK, we've been sort of trained to see those things as very bad, awful things and as failures. And it is true that when you start a new project, you don't know how successful it will be. It's a learning curve. And if you succeed, great. The truth is, the first steps may not work, but you learn from that. You learn how to pitch. You learn how to pace yourself. And the most important thing is not setting yourself up for failure. Don't take on something that is bigger than the level you are at. And there's nothing wrong in saying that. We need to say that. We need to be able to say, I can't do that yet, but I will be able to do it when, ... What tools do you need? You know, are there any apprenticeships, learning opportunities, things like that? Networking has been a huge part of my creative journey, and it didn't land on my doorstep. These people didn't suddenly appear. It's involved a lot of self-pitching and a lot of evidencing of skill, supplying things like your own stories that you've created. And so whatever it is, whether you're a songwriter, you know, a lyricist, whether you play an instrument, whatever it happens to be, there will always be a business person who will believe in you. And they are more likely to believe in you if you believe in yourself. Take this channel as an example. It went from March this year with around about 400, nearly 500 subscribers to over 44,000 subscribers. That didn't happen by accident. I had to put the work in. I had to, you know, clip the most important moments from Star Trek history. I had to edit. I had to learn how to use new software, you know, and things like that. And the objective was to entertain people. Clearly, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, you cannot easily monetize other people's content. And I would never seek to do that. Star Trek is owned by CBS and Paramount. Paramount tends to do more of the movie stuff. CBS tends to do the series and so on and so forth. It's their material. But it doesn't mean that you can't contribute to it. Submissions are so important. If you've got an idea that's never been done before in Star Trek, write it down. A pitch does not have to be 100 pages. Quite literally, it can be 4 sides of A4, maybe 5. You don't have to worry about dialogue. You just write the story. What is it about? How is it explored? What could be the outcome? You know, just those sorts of things. And you do not have to be an established writer to do this. Once you've created and written your unique story, you can submit it to CBS. They have no problem with that. CBS has a history of adapting fan content. They love it. You're doing the work for them. They don't have to come up with the stories themselves necessarily. Now, of course, it may mean that, you are not you're not taken on board in terms of writing dialogue. It may just be you're the based on a story written by whatever, but you still get paid for that, and you still get quite a large chunk of money potentially. Netflix are even easier to pitch to, and they are looking for people. There has never been a better time to adapt your passion in terms of fandom, whether that's Star Wars, Expanse, Star Trek, and so on and so forth, and make something of it. Create a business. Instead of thinking about it, do it. A simple word processor. Even an old computer will be able to run an Office Word style program or notepad that you can write something down and that you can save and that you can send via email. People worry a lot about spelling and grammar, and whilst those sorts of things are important, it's not necessarily the be all and end all. I know of well-established writers that struggle with sorry, you just got the tune from the washing machine. I know many people who struggle with punctuation, grammar, all sorts of different things, but they've been successful because those things are easier to correct by somebody else for you. Somebody who wants to help you succeed, for example, a helping hand. And that's really important to have people around you who believe in you and say, do you know what? Write that and I will proofread it. I will correct if necessary. I've learned so much over the years, when you have a brain injury and you have other challenges. Unfortunately, the school system in my day tended to prefer to write you off. Most of my significant achievements in education were as a young adult in adult learning environments. So different to school, much more mature, much more friendly, much more specific. Instead of doing 4 subjects in a day, you'll do a day of, say, psychology, a day of maths, whatever it happens to be. Really good things to do. Really good things to skill up on. And online, it's even easier now. Look at Skillshare. Brilliant, brilliant place to learn from people. For not a lot of money, there are lots of grammar checking, whatever. There are lots of videos online. See potential in yourself and not just the challenges you face. Because, well, as an individual, I'm a good example to colleagues and friends who know me, have known me from childhood and have seen me succeed, because I'm a determined kind of person. If I really, really want to do something, I do it, and I do it very well. And I think it could be the same for you too. Joining safe communities is really important because they can boost you up as well. Talking with people who aren't interested in trolling you. I know that's kind of a rare concept these days, isn't it? But it does exist. My team have created a really good community here on JLTV, and you are really beautiful people because I see how you support each other to achieve goals. Our STO team is a brilliant example of that. When we play and we're doing player versus player or fleet versus fleet, very often we are up against established teams that have been there for quite some time, hugely skilled. And, we've still got in there, we've done the job. And in many instances, not all, but in a good few instances, we've succeeded and won, and it shocked them. And that's because it's teamwork, it's conversation, it's networking, it's having people that you can believe in as role models, because that is so important, having role models. Never be afraid to reach out to people that might be well known, that you admire, to ask questions, to ask questions. Those that really care about people who value their work will take time to speak with you. I did that with Rod Roddenberry, had a good conversation. Brandon Bragger, another really, really inspirational person. Rick Sternbach, designer of so many starships, very amenable, very, very nice person, will give you advice. Doug Drexler, another one. So there are so many different opportunities out there for you that you need to be able to feel confident in asking for them and seeking them out and not expecting it to land on your doorstep. But as I end this captain's log, I want to say thank you to everybody who has supported my channel this year and helped it grow to the level that we now see ourselves. And in 2025, we have big plans for our community. We have big plans for our business goals. You have to remember this channel is funded by business activities and the kindness of our team. We don't make money here. We make money elsewhere so that here is free. And that will always be the case here at JLTV. Whatever your plans for the new year, I hope you enjoy New Year's Eve. I hope you see 2025 as an opportunity. And I encourage you to seek out positive, healthy, and fun things that you can turn into work or whatever your goal happens to be. I wish you well, and I wish you a happy Christmas and a very happy new year. Take care.